This is TV Podcast Industries, and this is the Watchmen Podcast Episode 4. If you don't like my story, write your own. Welcome back, watchers. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about The Watchmen Episode 4. If you don't like my story, write your own. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hi there, fellow watchers. I am one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out this trio of discussers, I am Chris. And yes, I am just writing my own stories now. I don't like yours, Derek. You are the producer, but I prefer to write my own.
Excellent. I did notice that you almost called us reviewers again, Chris.
Yes.
Didn't you?
Nearly.
So remember, fellow watchers, we at TV Podcast Industries, we don't review shows, we just discuss them. We talk all about the things that we're interested in every episode of the shows that happen because, well, you know, I can't review Damon Lindelof. I think he's an absolute genius. I can't tell you whether he's amazing or not. I just know his shows are awesome and I love talking about them. This is another episode of this show that I'm just ending it with. WTF. What is going on?
Absolutely.
So much to discuss, which is wonderful. That's one of the greatest things about this type of show to talk about. But I don't know whether I have any answers for anybody about what went on in this episode.
It just asked more questions.
Mm-hmm.
It really did.
Yeah, I literally, as we've discussed just briefly off air, this is the second episode where I'm like coming out with way more questions than so he's answering like one, and it's just not even a big one. It's quite a small, insignificant thing. And you're like, cool. So how many new questions did he add? Like 20? All right. This is going to be interesting.
Absolutely. But fellow watchers, if you want to make sure that you subscribe to all of our discussions, you can go over to tvpodcastindustries.com, subscribe to our podcast over there. You get all of our posts and all of our discussions about every episode of the show. What we do for the Watchmen show is we do our discussion about the episode, and then we do a feedback episode with your thoughts about anything that you've seen in the show that we haven't talked about. And there is loads. I could say, 20 or 30 pieces of feedback could come in every week talking about different things that we don't talk about on our episodes. So you can send any of your thoughts by email to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. You can leave us a voicemail over on our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. Just press the leave feedback button on the right hand side and leave a message with up to 90 seconds of your thoughts. Or you can join us over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. I put up a spoiler post every week just before the episode airs, and you can pop in your thoughts about the episode after you've seen it. I think there's going to be a lot of WTFs when this one goes out as well, right?
And by WTF, he means why the face.
Exactly. Let's get into our episode discussion, guys, because there's lots of things to talk about in here. The episode was written by Damon Lindelof once again and Christal Henry. Christal was a story editor on loads of TV shows over the last couple of years, but most recently she was a co-producer and one of the writers on the show The First, which was about the race to Mars, starring Sean Penn and Natasha McElhone. I just think it's interesting that most recently she worked on a show about traveling to Mars, and one of our main characters is up there right now waiting to be seen on screen. Dr. Manhattan. I'm talking about not Adrian Veidt. Or is he? Maybe he is.
Shut up.
Absolutely.
See again, why that face?
Exactly. The episode was directed by Andrij Parekh. He's directed a number of episodes of the HBO show Succession in the past, but he's actually more known as a cinematographer. He's got about 89 individual credits as cinematographer over the years from music videos to TV shows. So I think you can kind of see that in this episode. There's lots of really interesting touches that he does. Some confused us slightly, which we'll, I think, talk about in the episode. Transition particularly that he did confused us all as to whether there was a change in the timeline or not. But I think that works for this show because it's supposed to be putting you on edge and making you wonder whether you've seen the thing they're showing you on screen or not. So I think it worked quite well with a show like Watchmen.
100%. It very much mirrors that kind of comic book jumping back and forth and not understanding 100% the narrative tone, the dissonance of between what's going on and what's not. So as you said, yeah, his style, even some of those hard cuts were very unique to him in this episode.
Yeah.
But that's okay because again, we're getting that flavor of each of the individual directors throughout the last few episodes, and we're kind of seeing their take on the story, I suppose is the best way of putting it.
Exactly. John, do you want to tell us the official synopsis for this episode?
Sure. Reclusive trillionaire Lady Trieu finally enters the stage with a mysterious offer. With Laurie Blake getting closer to the truth of the cover-up, Angela enlists Looking Glass for help. The Lord of the Manor trains 2 new servants.
2 brand new servants.
Absolutely.
There's nothing newer than those new servants, really, is there?
Yes.
They're only about 3 or 4 hours old, and he just learned to talk. And
I
just
think
learned
he
to
does,
understand.
yeah, he does more than train them as well.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He plucks them from the lake.
The lady of the lake is missing some children.
I like it. Let's get into our points and our discussion points. As you know, fellow watchers, the way we talk about our podcast is we have our big point, which is at 5 minutes to midnight, our medium point at 4 minutes to midnight, and our small point, the little discussion point that we want to talk about at 3 minutes to midnight before we get to our clock set at 2 minutes to midnight.
The doomsday clock has been set to 5 minutes to midnight.
Chris, do you want to kick us off with your major point, please?
Yes. So first off, I want to talk about the lady in the lake and her misplaced children, as I just alluded to. This is very much talking about Veidt and his kind of the very strange scenes that we are given in this. So it opens with him on the lake and we're like, okay, fishing time. He's relaxing, he's kicking back and it's like, okay, no, he's maybe getting some lobsters. It looked like lobster cages.
Mm-hmm. I think he grows them as well.
Yeah.
I can't imagine they're swimming around the lake.
So he does make a distinction. He says, I am your master, not your maker, because I would never, ever create life without purpose, which is quite interesting. So someone else has created them potentially. As we said, Dr. Manhattan possibly created this prison, and possibly this is something else that he's also created within this dome where Adrian Veidt lives. Or maybe it's Lady Trieu who has captured Adrian Veidt and is using him to extract some knowledge about cloning from him. I think that's where my head's going at the moment.
Or did he build the cloning creation? And his, back in the day, when he cloned the squid with the IDE, the interdimensional event. So the squid, that the rain, so the one that originally hit New York, which has caused now these rain, is it actually his technology is being used against him? Mm-hmm. There's a lot here that we really need to unpack. But what we do see is he takes the babies and then accelerates their growth in that machine.
Yes.
So it does explain how he was able to build a small army of clones.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird. I kind of just assumed it was his baby pond that, it kind of goes back to my point with the technology. I was kind of saying it was limited technology. You didn't really see any electrics in the castle. And I kind of got this feeling that Veidt was in a special secret area that he had, certainly when he accelerated their growth after pulling them from the pond. I thought, but it's more kind of steampunk. It seems to be steam based. So again, it's like that's as much, it's Victorian era technology that he is having to use. So maybe he's able to do something with the cloning, but how, I don't know. Or maybe, as you say, then it's someone else and he's kind of nicking them. So that he can use them for his own, purposes. So I kind of really, I like this, a lot. I mean, I thought, when he chucked one of the babies back into the pond, sort of like, no, not good enough. I thought that was, that was pretty harsh, but, I liked then how this all unfolded just with this, rebirth of Mr. Phillips, and Mrs. Crookshanks, to the point where he's firing them off into space.
Yeah.
So that's the next part for me, which is we've questioned where he is. We've hypothesized that potentially he's on Mars. That is now getting stronger and stronger for me because what we see is he does launch the bodies, which, so actually taking a step back.
Yes.
Something happened between last episode and this episode.
Yes, he had one other thing that happened directly after revealing his name. He also put on his Ozymandias costume, and he may have been acting out with his clones, possibly.
Yeah, the massacre of the house staff was kind of interesting in that he said, I didn't need this now, in reference to the horseshoe.
Yes.
So we'd seen, I think it's episode 1 where he was given the horseshoe, as he was given his birthday cake as well. But this horseshoe, whatever the significance is, I have no idea, but certainly this horseshoe, or at least some kind of theme around that, is of importance to him. And again, Mr. Phillips, Miss Cruikshanks probably messed things up in terms of timing.
Yeah.
But that was kind of pretty interesting here.
It was, wasn't it? And again, I don't know whether we have any answers at all in this episode. I think it's setting up a lot of things. But also remember, as you said, John, he was given the horseshoe to cut the cake, which was his anniversary cake that he was given in the first episode. And here in this episode, while he's growing the clones, he has got a knife to cut into his anniversary cake that he's eating as well. So he does have access to knives, which we thought he didn't in the first episode.
Yeah.
But in this little hideaway where he's accelerating the growth for the clones, he does have knives and is eating his cake there. So, there's something going on. We will probably find out later on in the series. Right now, it's just all questions, isn't it?
Yeah, because I really enjoyed when he was catapulting them. Let me finish that sentence. I really enjoyed when he was catapulting them. And they weren't just kind of going in an arc. What we saw was, at a certain point in the sky, they just vanish. This does lead me to believe, to a high probability, that they are in some form of dome. A holographic dome, or at least a holographic ceiling on a dome, where on the other side, we know there is no atmosphere. There is this leads me to believe another planet, because when the original Butler was put out there in the suit, he was frozen solid, and that kind of like deep space
definitely.
type
And
thing.
also from Watchmen, we know that Dr. Manhattan can create kind of a force field as well, but whether the thing that struck me here was, you know, he's kind of testing the boundaries of this prison, which he calls out as being a prison, that he really liked this oasis, but that he was trapped here. Also, he actually says, I've been here 4 years. And I was just wondering, you know, was he sent there by Lady Trieu? Is it maybe nothing to do with Dr. Manhattan? Is it something to do with her timepiece? There's just so many different permutations here. It's really cool.
Why did she make that statue look so old, of Adrian Veidt? Is it because she's seen him really recently? Is he trapped inside that statue? Is that a stasis field of Adrian Veidt? I have no idea. But what I do know is this entire episode is all about cloning. There is a reference through the eggs all the way through the episode. Everybody seems to be using eggs. Eggs obviously symbolize a birth. We have the clones being accelerated and brought from babies all the way up to adulthood. There's certainly something very odd about Lady Trieu's daughter, Bien. Trieu Bien. There's something about her where she has memories of what Lady Trieu has seen in the past. And that seems to be something that Will has a problem with. Lady Trieu messing with Bien, effectively, not telling her the true story of who she is, which is just fascinating. So many questions, so much stuff going on.
The one thing I'll kind of end this point and we'll move on is from some of the Pedopedia files on one of the first episodes, we learned that technology is being shunned. The reason technology has not moved on as far as it has, was because after the IDE, everyone went back to pagers, everyone went back to things like that because people felt there was a backlash against technology. So that being the case, actually technology wasn't a slowdown as we originally.
Yes, I think it was the mass of human society shunned technology because of the arrival of this massive squid in New York City. But that doesn't mean that scientists stopped developing things. So I think that's what we're seeing here, is that there are some people that have been working on it, but the mass shunned things like mobile phones and that kind of stuff. So what you're saying, interestingly, about Adrian Veidt being out of society and potentially being put in slightly Victorian type era, he's still able to work with the technology he has to create quite advanced things, but just in a steampunk way, because he doesn't have access to what would be there in the current days, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So very interesting.
Yeah, so that kind of wraps up my overall point. John, do you want to give us your top point for this episode?
Yeah, I think my top point was it's the whole relationship between Laurie Blake and Angela Abar. Like, there's some really good conversations here between the two, some really good scenes from the car re-entering Earth, or being dropped back from the sky, where just outside the Greenwood Cultural Centre, and you have them both there talking about the car. You have them in Judd Crawford's old office, where Laurie Blake has moved in, and I think that's a really nice one, just because it's kind of tense, you know, there's this kind of grudging respect, I think, but also I think Angela just does not want Laurie Blake or the FBI around. It is that notion of a cover-up going on somehow in Tulsa. But I really liked the idea that she sat in her former friend and colleague's chair. It really rattles her up the wrong way. But then she gets rattled even further because, you know, she is investigating, and we hear that she has pulled tons of prints from the car that fell from the sky. And there was one that has been tracked back through the Quantico database to Will Reeves.
Yeah.
And you just get a really nice, interesting backstory, bit more detail on Will, that he was a cop in New York City back in the 40s, 50s, and that would make him over 100 years old. And how do they get around in a wheelchair? So we see Angela cutting up the wheelchair at the end. So has she found that trash from Milk and Hanoi Bakery? I love the fact that there is this work being done by Laurie Blake and Agent Petey, probably in the background. And she knows it, but we don't really get to see it until she kind of is there trying to pull the rug out of Angela's feet.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really nice. And certainly given then how we see Will at the end, where he seems to be walking pretty well. And he makes that comment, my feet don't hurt, after the conversation between Trieu and Bian, where she says, my feet still hurt. You know, this idea of her walking for miles and miles and miles, to get somewhere after her village in Vietnam has been destroyed. So, I thought this was really, really good.
So much in here really about Will as well that you just referenced there. So, we hear that his name is Will Reeves. So Boss Reeves was the character that he was watching in that first episode on screen. So I wonder, has he taken that surname of Reeves from that movie, or is he directly related to Boss Reeves in some way? Potentially. Interestingly, again, he's also a police officer in the 40s and 50s in New York. Yeah. The original Night Owl was also a police officer before he donned the mask and became the Night Owl. All the characters in this show, including Angela, wearing the masks, they're all police officers. So a nice connection between the 40s and the time now in this show. And yeah, as you say, he doesn't need the wheelchair to walk.
No.
As we see at the end of the episode. So potentially there is something super about the character. We've talked many times now about him possibly being Hooded Justice. In the show, we hear Petey call out the fact there's loads of historical inaccuracies, possibly including the race of the character of Hooded Justice. Maybe the character played by a white man underneath and using the accent he's using is completely incorrect because nobody actually knows who the Hooded Justice is. As we've mentioned, that makes it likely that Will was Hooded Justice back in those days. So loads of interesting little hints being dropped throughout this episode.
Yeah. And we have the pills still in the glove compartment of the car. And I get the feeling in that opening scene between Laurie Blake and Angela, I get the feeling that Laurie Blake spots those pills in the glove compartment. Yeah. There's something about it, how that scene is framed, that suggests that she caught a glimpse of what was in the glove compartment. And I love that exchange between Lady Trieu and Sister Night there at her kind of glass house that's replicating Vietnam, where in Vietnamese, they're trying to hide the conversation that's very personal from Laurie Blake. And it's all about these pills. You know, have you got those pills? And she's like, you can tell that old fecker, if he needs his pills, he can ask me himself. To which Trieu has the great line, I haven't heard that one. It's quite beautiful. Just to keep up the pretense for Agent Blake. But that was a nice little moment there. I thought.
Yeah, no, they're fascinating, these characters together. What a great introduction to Lady Trieu, which is my point, for my big point for here, because this is a brand new character and we've seen references to Trieu and how big she is. I think in the, episode description, she's described as a trillionaire, like the richest person on the planet, I guess, right? Or one of the richest anyway. She bought Adrian Veidt's business out from underneath him effectively when he went. So I don't know what the connection is between those. I'm sure we'll find out, but I loved the opening scene as we went to the Clark family homestead, I suppose. Really interesting scene as we get introduced to Lady Trieu, who effectively goes, I've got 3 minutes to persuade these people to buy their entire land. I don't know, it really gives a great indication of who this person is. Nothing is out of her reach. She has a way of getting at everybody. They do get a massive amount of money in the offer here, right? They get something like 5 million, she says, is in a bank account for them.
500 million.
500 million. Okay, that's even bigger than I thought. I thought it was only 5 million.
Yeah, I thought it was only 5.
Yeah, but they get a baby out of it as well. A baby created from their own genetic material, similar to the cloning that we've seen throughout the episode. And this is kind of what kicks it all off. But I also love the hilarious moment when Lady Trieu goes, and if you don't take the baby, well, I've got to go and kill it now, don't I? No, I'm not that bad. I will find a nice family to put it with, Just love that she will at least make the joke about it. But it really shows and reveals what she's willing to do and how good she is at manipulating people to give her what she wants, because you can see once they hear that this child is made from their genetic material and is genuinely their child, the Clarks cannot resist going towards the child and can't resist signing the piece of paper. And I love the result of it is they have signed within the time period that she's allowed for them to sign. And just as they do, something falls to earth outside, which, as Lady Trieu says, the only description we get of it is it's hers now because she's bought the land. She owns the land. So the timer was actually, I thought it was just, I can do this really quickly and time is precious to me, but actually she knew this was coming to land in their land. So, and she only gave it a certain amount of time. So, some really interesting stuff going on with her.
Yeah. I thought the whole egg timer and the 3 minutes for, deciding the offer, I thought that was really, really nicely done, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. I liked the talk of, her offer is legacy, a child and a son, because they had unfortunately failed with fertility treatment. That the legacy is not in the land, but in, the people that are left behind to carry on the name. So, just to buy the house and it's 40 acres. And yeah, as you say, then the meteorite lands, on, the Clarks or Lady Trieu's land now, immediately after the deal. So, so what does she know? How does she know this information? The whole thing is, what is it, this meteorite? Is it Adrian Veidt coming back from Mars? He's finally found a way to successfully escape his prison. And so that I think there's a little bit of messing with time here as well, because you see Bien there and she seems to be the same age as we see her later on in the episode. At the big time clock. Lady Trieu also looks the same age. It doesn't seem as though any time has passed. And I just thought this was really really interesting. I'm like, what is the timeline here?
And that's what we were talking about with that cut that was specifically done between when she bought it and the item landed on Earth. As the camera's panning towards it, we see that kind of fade to Laurie in right beside the Trieu phone booth, effectively, that she used last episode. So we were wondering whether that was a transition of time over a couple of years, but I don't think it was. It looks like a director's choice to kind of have a bit of sleight of hand in it, I guess. So it should be same timeline. I don't think it's years ago that this happened, but potentially there is a big time shift between what we're seeing with Adrian Veidt, wherever he is, and what's happening in the real world. Is what you're saying, yeah? That you think that potentially he's already escaped his prison, and that was him landing on Earth now. And we're seeing his past in his prison. Yeah. Yeah,
and just because she has the statue of him where he's his current self, as we're seeing, on the series. So is that him in a prison there? Maybe. That statue. So, I mean, yeah, there's just way too many options here for me, and I'm probably going to get them all mixed up as we move forward, because it's like, I can't keep these sort of clear in my mind sometimes.
Absolutely.
There is some manipulation of time in the comic book, or the passage of time, especially with Dr. Manhattan, where he talks about how he's able to see multiple things happening, past, present, and future, all the same to him, etc. And it was just that fade. It was that fade on the grass between the estate and ending with Agent Blake.
Yeah.
That made me seem, 100%, it seemed like the passage of time, that they had built the center, and the phone booth and everything there on that land.
Right.
But I think you're right. I don't think that's what it was. I think it was just it's a bit of sleight of hand. It's trickery. And I think it's a unique one. I think if they do anything, they may go, some of these scenes happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Some of these scenes have happened in the past. Some of these are happening in the future. Here's the way it all worked out. But I don't think that's the case. The reason I say this is Veidt said he was trapped for 4 years.
Yeah.
But he already looks years and years and years older. So what we're seeing probably wasn't too far in the past, because he said he's been trapped for 4 years.
I get you. Yep.
Yeah. What, if anything, I think it's just a couple of weeks difference, max. But the bigger question out of all of this with Lady Trieu is, what fell to Earth?
Absolutely. And I think that's why the transition messes with everybody, because that's what we think we're about to see when the camera goes over the land. We think we're about to see, effectively the Superman coming to Earth. We think we're seeing the Kryptonian arriving on Earth on the land of the Clarks, just like Clark Kent arrived on the Kent's land, I suppose, in original Superman, That's what we think we're about to see, and then they give us a transition instead. So because of that transition, you're thinking, oh, something grew out of this thing that landed on the land. But yeah, you're right. It seems like it's happened very recently.
Yeah, and a nice little Easter egg, the jigsaw that the Clarks are doing is of the night sky painting by Van Gogh. Which shows a meteorite falling, or a shooting star coming through the atmosphere to Earth.
Very, very nice.
Good catch.
Since we're talking about Easter eggs now in that particular scene, also interesting seeing Mrs. Clark reading the book Fog Dancing, which was written by Max Shea in the Watchmen comic books. He is the writer of The Black Freighter. So this is his book that came out afterwards. So nice little drop in there, some more Black Freighter references as well. But I do hear a ticking, gentlemen. Time to get on to our next point.
The doomsday clock has been set to 4 minutes to midnight.
Chris, do you want to give us your middle point, your medium-sized point for the episode?
So my medium-sized point is the tower. Lady Trieu in the tower, I should say. So we do get this introduction to the tower that is being built in the middle of Tulsa. When Agent Blake, Sister Knight, and Petey go to that, we are introduced to the flying machines, these hovercrafts, essentially 6 large drones that are able to lift materials up to the top of the tower.
Yes. Massive magnets on the bottom of them.
Strange, isn't it?
Yes. This may have some relevance for the Watchmen pub quiz as well, fellow watchers, just as a little interjection. The first question, given in the first feedback podcast, for the first episode it also references the second episode, was talking about aerial transportation. So, this may be new information that may have a relevance, a negative relevance maybe for the Watchmen pub quiz.
For the real answer. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But overall, I just think this was really unique, because what we find is she's building within the tower a new 8th wonder of the world, or a new wonder of the world, as she puts it.
Yes, the tower itself. The clock is aiming to be the first wonder of the new world, is how Bian describes it. Yeah, that was quite interesting. I thought that was an interesting touch, because that kind of feels a little Adrian Veidt. It sounds a little bit like we're about to destroy the current world, and this will be the new wonder of the new world. It does sound a little bit like, hang on a second, do you have some master plan to destroy what's going on in the world at the moment as well,
Yeah, that's what kind of got me, especially with the building within, where we see Lady Trieu and where she meets Sister Night, there's a clear difference, a delineation between the architecture of the white and the very scientific to what we see inside, which is a garden that is within a dome that is set to the temperature of Vietnam, and the temperature, the atmosphere, the moisture, everything, the humidity is all set to Vietnam.
Yeah.
But the style of the actual architecture is all stone. There's a lot of kind of white, kind of yellow stone, which leads me to think, oh, okay, are we looking at like partly Aztecian, Mayan? That's where I was kind of that style. We see that same area later, and it does then have the more Vietnam wooden frames, the doors, the kind of paper doors as well. So I'm confused as hell, as always. I just thought it was so interesting to see this tower being built and being called a clock, a timepiece.
What does it do? It tells the time, you know. I suppose one of the things you do need to bring in here as well is when Laurie and Petey were flying over Tulsa when they were arriving, Laurie pointed out the clock that was being built and says it has already opened to the public. There was already an opening of this, so they're not waiting to finish the clock to open it to the public. They have already done that. So I just thought it was quite interesting that they're still building on it. As well. So they're not finished. They have already done the groundbreaking and opening for the public. So.
Yeah. And you do see kind of a big giant levitating gyroscope swirling round, at the top of the tower in its center. I presume the timepiece, I suppose.
Yeah.
Of this. I thought
similar to the watchmaker on Mars who built his own.
Yeah, exactly.
Massive timepiece out of the ground.
Glass.
Glass,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really good. I also like that the hover ships or massive drones, as you say, Chris, they kind of look like stingrays.
Yes.
That was pretty nice. Another aquatic organism.
Yes.
I wonder if they have come, or I wonder if that technology has come through that interdimensional event as well.
So many questions.
It does. It just keeps. I just want to know the answers.
But that's okay. That's okay. We still got 5 episodes to go. It's all right.
Exactly.
I would hate to just read the synopsis for 9 episodes and find out how it all ends, because the journey has been so interesting. John, do you want to give us your medium point?
Yeah, I suppose, speaking of the IDE, that my next point is this looking glass bunker.
I cannot believe we brought 3-letter acronyms into our podcast, gentlemen.
Yes, interdimensional event, because we get a little glimpse at Looking Glass here. We kind of get to look under that metaphorical mask, and we see that he has this bunker. I was there thinking, is this because it's to protect him from the 7th Cavalry, but it seems more that it's to protect him from the squids falling to Earth. It's almost like an air raid shelter.
Right.
But we see in here that he's taking pictures of the squid before they die. I love that he kind of says they're on the Earth for 30 seconds, and in all that time, their only purpose is to die. And you're just like, okay, because of all these prints up of the octopuses, then, or octopi, I suppose, then you have, Sister Night just going, you're fucking weird. And he goes, you are self-aware enough to know the inherent irony in that statement, basically saying you're weird as well.
Yeah.
And he makes reference to Agent Blake saying, and that FBI agent, well, she's weird as well. So it's kind of like this weirdness within Looking Glass's bunker. But yeah, it's a kind of a bit of a counterpoint as well from my first point. My main point is just, it's this counterpoint to Sister Night running her off-grid, off the books investigation on the pills to be tested, but also then we see Judd Crawford's sort of robes, or at least that memorabilia that he's kept from his father. There's a suggestion there. And, for Looking Glass to look into that some more in terms of that the hooded robes of the Ku Klux Klan,
or at least to hide them so that Laurie doesn't find them anyway.
Yeah,
I loved Looking Glass's response to Angela when she says, "Did you know that Judd was a racist?" And he goes, wearing his Tulsa hat, he goes, "Well, he is a white man in Tulsa." And you're going, So are you. Are you saying something about yourself there as well? Looking Glass, I'm wondering about that, whether he's kind of saying all of us are racists, every one of us.
Yeah.
So, he's such an interesting character. People were thinking originally that we were never going to see his face, that he would be like Rorschach, that he would be in hiding all the time, that we'd never see his full face without the mask on. So having this episode where not only are we seeing his full face, we're seeing that he is investigating other things that are going on. He's a very interesting character. And it seems like he has a lot of feelings. He's not an unfeeling character like Rorschach tended to be, a very straight down the line, everything's black or white, was his character. Whereas Looking Glass seems to be much more open to these kind of conversations and much more hurt by the death of Judd, for example, than Rorschach would have been. So this isn't our Rorschach character in the show, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly giving off Rorschach vibes in terms of him being a bit of a loner.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think, maybe if Rorschach had seen the Ku Klux Klan robes, he would have made that instant judgment and tarred Judd Crawford. Whereas Looking Glass kind of says, well, it could have been his dad's. Maybe it was just some kind of memorabilia or memento. Again, a little weird, but again, people do that. And, he tries just to maybe, look at that middle ground rather than immediately, judging his former boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. For me, overall, Looking Glass is just, he's another question. I just don't know. You're right. He's not the Rorschach character. He may have the appearance.
Right.
Of the Rorschach character. Mm-hmm. Again, mostly just because his costume, the mask, it's very much just the mask.
Yeah. It's only that.
And the overall tone, which he's given, the way his character's portrayed, in from a vocal perspective. That's a Snyder from the film, kind of choice as well, which has kind of been taken over. But I think you're very much right. He's not the character that we're again led to believe. Mm-hmm. So just when the joke with, Fight, which is he's exactly who we think he is.
Yeah.
Playing, I think some of the characters we've been introduced to and who we think they are and the way that they are being portrayed is going to slowly change. And we're already seeing that.
Yeah.
Angela's husband, we got the sense of the very first episode or so, he's just like a dad at home. He's very mellow. He's kind of, and as the episodes have progressed, we're seeing that's not the case. So again, with the characters in the show, I'm getting very much, and with the Looking Glass, appearances can be deceiving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was a really good conversation between Angela and her husband, because we see that they've met in Vietnam and he had some kind of injury or something happened to him, where he's retired. So that was just really nice, just before they go up to the closet.
Yeah, I need a special closet like that. I don't know why. I just kind of go, you have a good bed, but okay, fine, do what you need.
There's also 3 kids in the house, so maybe that's just their protection, so the kids don't walk in as well, potentially,
There's amazing new technology in the world of Watchmen called locks.
Doors and locks.
Yes, exactly.
Doors.
I do wonder about Cal's accident. I wonder what bearing that will have in the future, on future episodes, because he is an interesting character. We do have that conversation where he doesn't like to lie. That's the way it was. It's the way it was. The conversation went with Angela. So I'm wondering what else there is about Cal that we don't know just yet.
And I think interestingly, again, it's Agent Blake trying to unsettle Angela by going to her home, talking to her husband. But his response is quite interesting in that he just gets this vibe that she is trying to help.
Yeah.
And you can see the independence, the fiery independence of Angela. I don't need, her help. I can do this on my own. Yeah. So this is really interesting.
Yep. I'm going to take a small point for my medium point at 4 minutes to midnight because we're running out of time before we get to 3 minutes to midnight. I'm just going to bring in our slippery vigilante here, or as the wonderful Red Scare calls him, Lube Man, which I just think is hilarious. it just was one of those really interesting scenes. It seems like another vigilante that's out there that the police don't know about, effectively. So all we've seen so far in the show, anyway, is masked police officers and 7th Cavalry members. That's it. And now we have this silver, slippery vigilante running around the streets, doing that awesome move where, I guess, yeah, it's lube sprayed all over him and then sliding into a drain. How cool was that scene? Like it looked like that person actually did it.
I think they did. I think it's like some luge person.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
It was so, in my head I went, oh, the Silver Surfer. Okay. The Silver Slipper?
Maybe.
Yeah. I had Spandex Man, Sewer Man, and Silver Man.
Okay.
Before Red Scare came up with the official title, Lube Man. I got real X-Files vibes from it, actually. Certainly with him sort of sliding into the sewers, which I thought was really cool. I thought his escape was really cool.
I loved as the camera pans back upwards from the ground as he's slipped into the sewer that you see the grease stain left behind on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I was getting massive X-Files vibes from kind of, was it the worm, the mutant worm that was
Adrian Toomes?
And there was, Victor Toomes as well.
Victor Toomes.
Yeah, the two.
That was it.
But both of those, I really got that flashback to Mulder and Scully. Probably because they lived in a sewer.
Right.
The truth is out there, fellow watchers. The truth is out there. But probably only once we get to episode 9.
Well, as I recently revealed in my Into the Night Isla Ra session with the guys over at Into the Night, I haven't seen much of X-Files, so there was no vibe there for me. I've only seen about 3 episodes of that show, even though I'm supposed to love it. It's supposed to be a show I would absolutely adore, but I've only seen 3 episodes, and John chose those ones for me, so I don't know much about the X-Files, unfortunately. But that's an interesting one. Yeah,
yeah, but dropping back to our Silver Slipper, how do we think this is going to impact it? Because essentially, is this saying that vigilantes are on the rise again, particularly even in Tulsa, or is the 7th Cavalry masking up more? So, like, members of their lieutenants are similar to members of the police lieutenants, where they're a bit more, they don't just have the Rorschach mask, they have a silver gimp suit. It was just so left of field for me. I'm like, okay, this is an interesting one. It's either going to be something, this was just put in as a comic bit and will have a small bit of relevance, or this is something bigger.
Yeah. I think Sister Night again sums it up, after Lube Man has made his escape, into the sewers, where she goes, WTF? She's like, whatever about it, as you say, Chris, coming out of left field for us, it seems as though it equally came out of left field for Sister Night.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So in all likelihood, this slippery vigilante is someone that we've seen in the show already, right? Somebody that's there potentially. Maybe it's Bian, Lady Trieu's daughter, potentially. Maybe it's Petey, because he seems quite
exactly.
upset.
Yes.
So
nice choice.
Where was Angela Barrett this time? She was at the dump, wasn't she?
No, so she had just cut up the wheelchair, she put it in a duffel bag, drove to a bridge, and then under the bridge we see the garbage trucks driving, and she throws it over the bridge into the garbage trucks, timed perfectly, by the way.
And maybe that's why in the office at the police station you have Agent Blake talking about 100-year-old men. How do they get around? Well, they get around in a wheelchair. So maybe Agent Petey is just keeping tabs, and they've been able to find out what she threw into the dump truck over the bridge.
He just feels like that kind of guy that would put on a mask and would carry something to get him out of those types of situations, because he's done a lot of research, as we know from our feedback episodes, talking about Peacepedia and every appearance that he's had on screen. Did you guys notice the little casual brush off of him after Laurie slept with him in the last episode? He tried to walk into the office without knocking, and it was instantly, we're back to our working relationship. How dare you come in here without knocking, basically. So he thought he'd kind of broken down a barrier between the two of them, but absolutely not. That was just sex. This is business. I like that kind of moment. And he's made sit in the car and wait as well.
Yeah, poor Agent Petey.
I do like the idea now that I had not thought it was Agent Petey up until we just talked about it there, but it does make It makes a lot of sense.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And it's the right height, build, everything.
Yeah. Maybe. You never know, though, with this show. That could have been anybody, so we will see next time.
Exactly. Hark! What is that I hear?
The doomsday clock has been set to 3 minutes to midnight.
So, we're at 3 minutes to midnight, and we are into our final points. Gentlemen, I'm going to jump this in quickly because I want to talk about one particular scene, just as a small bit, but something I found really interesting. The scene in the car where we have Angela when she's in full Sister Night garb, we have Petey, and we have Agent Blake. And we get we've seen the scene or parts of the scene in some of the trailers where we see Agent Blake talking about, why do you wear the mask? Why do we wear masks? Why do people wear masks?
Yeah.
And Agent Blake, it's because of trauma. She believes it's because anyone who wears a mask is because they're hiding from the trauma. And it's a really, really nice scene, but it goes a lot further than what we originally assumed it was.
Absolutely.
Because Petey's in the car and Blake turns to Andrij and ask him why I wore a mask. What was my trauma?
Do you know, I love that reveal as well. I just thought that was very funny because you feel like it's a conversation going on between Laurie and Sister Night. You think that they're having a really deep moment about their relationship with masks, and she's revealing to her that she used to be a masked hero, and then it's like, Petey, you tell her why I did that. And it kind of cuts to him in the back and a little comedy shift to the camera. I thought it was quite funny.
But yeah, it's great where she says people who wear masks hide trauma. And Angela, again, it's butting heads. So she's taking the opposite line of, I wear the mask to protect myself. And Agent Blake goes, yes, for the pain from the trauma. Just really, it just at one another to get the final say. I really liked it.
I was just surprised that Angela didn't react as much as she did to the reveal that Agent Blake was Silk Spectre. So I'm questioning, is it just because the Minutemen are not thought of that way anymore? Like why they don't care? We've heard Dan Driver, the second Night Owl, is allegedly in prison. That we know Rorschach's dead. We know Ozymandias was declared dead. So are the Minutemen of the second generation gone?
They did have a very short career, if you remember. They got together for a very short amount of time. Not sure if the legend of Laurie Blake, Silk Spectre, would have made it to Tulsa. Because remember when Petey calls out the fact that her mother was the original Silk Spectre and her father was the comedian, the response from Angela was, like the guys on that TV show. You know? So she knows them from the TV. She doesn't know them from her history or history lessons, potentially because masked heroes aren't allowed to practice and haven't been able to practice for 30 odd years. And they are effectively masked police officers nowadays. Potentially it's just not something that she would have known about. So she just assumes, well, okay, whatever, you used to wear a mask. I wear it differently because I'm an officer of the law walking around in a mask. Whereas you're an FBI agent coming down and telling me you used to wear a mask. And you're antagonizing me. So I don't care that you used to wear a mask. It's obviously for different reasons than me. But she does have a traditional origin story, which I thought was quite interesting from Angela. We hear that she was an orphan, that her parents were dead. So, that's a very traditional comic book origin story. I think if you go back through our catalog of all of our coverage of all of the Defenders shows and Gotham and all of those shows, everybody has lost either a father or a mother, or their parents are both dead. So I like that she has that traditional origin story, a little Batman-y, obviously. Yeah,
and she, Agent Blake does say, so, was it nuns? Were you in a convent or something
Did
like that?
Did they take care of you? Have your parents died?
Because of the get-up. So, I thought that was really good.
Yeah. Cool costume.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of the best costumes, I think, for a while. But enough of that. We're on a deadline. John, what is your point?
It kind of links into Angela's history. It's life's mysteries or life's histories.
Love
at the Greenwood Cultural Centre, where we get to see this rather elaborate family tree. I love that. I thought it was so cool getting the acorn and planting it in the ancestry room at the Cultural Centre in Greenwood.
Yeah.
I thought this was really nice. I mean, she could have just gotten it as an email, possibly
Absolutely.
on her phone, or even just a printout. Yeah. But I love this holographic family tree. Thought it was really good. But they are quite certain that June and Will Abar are the paternal grandparents for Angela. And I think we get that really nice haunting image where they dive further into the family tree and the computer asks Angela, do you want to meet your great grandparents? It's Obie Williams and Ruth Robinson, who were both slain in Tulsa from episode 1. And they had one son. This is the only picture we have of Will Abar, or Will Reeves,
yes.
As such. So, and I love her looking at the son, Will, as the images of her great grandparents sort of disappear, as she says, you're not dead. You went missing, and now you're back in Tulsa. Mm-hmm. Now, wherever you are, leave me alone. Like there's something there that it feels like she knows, and that's why she doesn't want anything to do with him, or that she has a feeling, because then right at the end, where we do get this moment with Will Reeves and Lady Trieu, where we're given this timeline of 3 days, and that she will know what I have done, and she'll hate me for it. So what's he doing? What's he about to do? Because we have here with Lady Trieu that now that family is involved, she's concerned it's going to get messy. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be full in on the job that she's asking him to do. So again, this all kind of links in really nicely. And again, another timeline.
Yeah. And again, Will ends the episode with tick tock, tick tock. The way they've kind of been shining a light on the 7th Cavalry and saying that they're just a racist organization coming from the KKK, effectively, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody in there is white. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is a racist organization in this show. There is no reason why Will couldn't be the leader of the 7th Cavalry. We've heard everybody talk about them and their motivations being based on Rorschach, who wasn't necessarily a racist himself. They've taken teachings from him, they've read his book, and they've taken their philosophy from what he's done, and all we've heard is other people speak about them. So is Will referencing the fact that maybe he's the one that sent somebody to kill Judd, and when she finds out in a few days' time that he's the one that killed her best friend and former boss, she's going to be after him, effectively. So is that what he's referencing?
Maybe.
For me, because we know Lady Trieu has taken over all the holdings of Veidt. Mm-hmm. In the comic books, Veidt wanted to essentially, with the giant squid, his plan was to have the giant squid attack, and then the world came together. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if something is similar. Is this Lady Trieu's plan? Is she not only just taking all the technology and everything from Veidt? Is she also planning on doing this kind of like massive event, a kind of build a weapon and set off a weapon of mass destruction, or a calamity of some kind that people will rally around? Are they going to destroy Tulsa so that essentially the world will rally behind the survivors? Things like that. That's where I'm starting to question, because they're setting it up potentially like that. Like, Will may be the fall guy. Yeah. Will may be, we're going to do something so heinous, but for the right reasons.
Right. Yeah.
Again, setting these two people as the Ozymandias characters from the comic book. Mm-hmm. Now, part of me thinks that could be it, but again, do you think Damon Lindelof would directly rip a theme, a piece from the comic books?
I do. I absolutely think he did. And I think part of it could be because the last time it was made into a live action movie, they didn't take that exact part from the comic book. They went for Dr. Manhattan attacking New York, effectively, which is very different from what happened in the comic books in intention, I suppose. They turned Dr. Manhattan into a massive villain in the movie in a way. And no aspersions on the movie. It's very difficult to get a big squid monster in New York and make it not look absolutely mental. So it's probably the right choice to do in a movie. But what we have here is it's playing on the basis of this is what happened in the comic books and potentially using these characters to retell that idea 30 years later. Yes, Adrian Veidt's idea of bringing the world together and rallying behind each other and stopping hating each other by landing this massive squid in New York. Maybe it did work for 30 years and now tensions are rising once again and maybe it is time to have another event like this in the mines. And I think where Will comes into it is he's already lived through a massive event in the 20s in Tulsa where there was a massive attack and it's partially forgotten by history until brought back with the reparations paid for by President Redford's administration. It's been brought back into the minds of people and it's creating this massive standoff between two groups, one who feels they've been massively hard done by and the other who's getting the reparations from the government. Is getting that standoff between the two. So potentially Will's getting in here and going, we need to do something about this before it kicks off and the memory's lost, effectively.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Massive. Loads and loads of interesting stuff going on in this episode. And a lot of it just speculation from ourselves. I just have one tiny point for my final point on the episode. And it was just the conversation with the kids in Angela's house, in Angela and Cal's house. We hear the kids have been told about the death of Judd. They were at the funeral, obviously, and they were told by Topher is telling the girls that Judd hasn't gone to heaven. And they're screaming about it. They're having a big argument about it. And it just felt so different for a TV show, the response from Cal, who comes over and stops them fighting and goes, but kids, Topher's right, because he's not in heaven, because there is no such thing as heaven. You came from nothing, you're born, you grow up, you get old, then you die and you go back to nothing. It's like, I've not heard that described in a TV show, especially with young kids. I've not heard that described in a TV show at all, I think. I don't think I've ever heard it put out that way in a drama show.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I think he says heaven is pretend. He applies the Santa Claus logic to his kids that, you know, this is made up, and so on. But we've all heard those stories about, you know, the moments children find out that Santa Claus isn't real, and, you know, potentially difficult conversations that need to be had, or the fact that, you know, the kid knows already because it's just crazy nonsense, the idea, and are just eking out a few more additional presents, as the years go by. But I just thought this was really interesting that he applies that whole kind of, Santa Claus logic to heaven, that it's pretend. You come from nowhere, you're alive, you die, you go back to nowhere.
Yeah, but I do think the way he extends that slightly to, you come from nowhere, you're born, you live your life, you experience your experiences, you grow old, and then you die. And then you go back to nothing. Because it's not blink of an eye, you're dead. Because that's the way it could sound. He's putting the positive spin on it, which is live your life because you only get one, is kind of the way that a lot of people who don't believe in an afterlife would believe. This is your life. You gotta live it. You don't live it for the afterlife, you live it for now, is kind of the way. But it just seems so strict and harsh. And I wonder if the kids have been constantly told, since they've all lost their parents on White Night, have these two girls been constantly told, your parents are okay, they're in heaven? And Cal is going, there's no such thing as heaven. You know, it seems like such a harsh line that he's putting under this discussion even with the kids, because they seem completely distraught suddenly about the loss of Judd because their brother is telling them there's no such thing as heaven.
But they are distraught, but then very easily get over it because waffles.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Who doesn't like waffles?
Absolutely. Yeah. Also definitely want to keep an eye on Topher as a character. He seems old way beyond his years. There's some moments in this episode, even when he's having that conversation with Angela, when she's in the bed below him, asking whether she was scared about the attack by Judd, and then handing over the cuddly toy to her when she says that she was scared. He just seems a little older than in his mind than I would expect for a kid that young, but he's gone through massive trauma, of course, but I do want to keep an eye on him and see what's happening within his mind in the rest of the episodes.
Yeah, I get the feeling there'll be a reveal about that kid of some kind.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The doomsday clock is now at 2 minutes. I repeat, 2 minutes to midnight.
With all of our points done, we have a couple of little references, I suppose, that come from comic books. Some of the little bits and pieces are 2 minutes to midnight moments, some Easter eggs and points. Chris, do you have anything to kick us off?
The first one is the statue. So the statues themselves are, we know later, as is revealed by the face, that it's the face of Ozymandias, but as he is now, in the comic books, he has them of himself when he is the right age.
Yes.
The age of the comic book. So he has multiple things, like, at least 2 that I remember, big gold statues of himself, dressed as Ozymandias.
Yeah. I love Laurie's reaction to that as well. Why did you make him so old? He looks awful.
Yeah, because Lady Trieu kind of says in our culture in Asia, we revere, sort of the older members of society. And she goes, "You're in America." He just looks old. We value youth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the final one is just with Will standing, looking at the height. It again needs a lot of credence because he's actually 6 something, I think, by the looks of that.
Right.
When I see him in the very last scene, his color of his clothes and the jacket and everything, it just again, I think it's leaning towards credence that he may be the Hood of Justice.
Yeah. Absolutely. Still possible. Still possible in there, or at least connected to the original Night Owl in some way as well.
Yes.
One other question that we haven't really talked about, but we've mentioned in passing a number of times that I just want to underline again here. Why has everybody spent some time in Vietnam and is in Tulsa? We hear Cal and Angela met over there, and now live in Tulsa. Obviously Lady Trieu from Vietnam, now in Tulsa. What's drawing all of these people to this particular place? Laurie calls it out even, she's going, "Oh, that's quite a coincidence, isn't it? That you would be from Vietnam and here and Angela's in the room with you." That's quite interesting. Another piece that connected to a previous episode, Senator Keane, we see him for a very quick moment in this episode. He apologizes for what happened to Judd and says, if I wasn't at that funeral, maybe that bomber wouldn't have been there. Is he just highlighting, as we reckoned, did he hire this bomber to kind of add a little bit to his presidential race, Is he just kind of going, remember, I was there. Hi, everybody, And of course, since we always talk about the name of the episode, the name of this episode is, If You Don't Like My Story, Write Your Own. That's from the author of Chinua Achebe, a Nigerian author. Just interestingly, because Cal, is sitting on the couch reading his book, he's reading his book, Things Fell Apart. So just a little nod there to the author and his original phrase. I do love the phrase that's, if you don't like my story, write your own. The reason that's associated with that novelist is effectively he was saying that at the time in the 50s and 60s, the books that he was reading about the experience of Nigerian people were mostly written from other people's perspective, people that weren't Nigerian. So he went, well, if I don't like those stories and if they're written really badly, I'll go and write my own. And he became a world famous novelist out of the back of it, which is just a very inspiring quote. Yeah.
But who's writing the story now?
Who is writing the story?
Who's writing the writing men?
Exactly. Who's writing the writing men? I like it. Very good, John. I like it. On that, I think that's all of our little notes and nods that we saw in this episode. I'm sure there are loads and loads more that you may have seen when you were watching the episode, fellow watchers. If you've seen any that we didn't talk about, send it in to us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. We'll discuss it on our next Bulletin of the Atomic Watchers, or feedback episode as it's more commonly known. Guys, what did you think of the overall episode? John, what did you think of episode 4?
I really enjoyed this episode. I would give it 4.5 broken eggs out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make an omelette? You have to smash some eggs. And I think, this just smashed everything open, with more questions, more options, more possibilities. But I'm expecting the omelette to come together towards episode 9. I think, Blake and Angela's confrontation, polite confrontation. I just thought those scenes just after the car had returned back to Earth, without Will, was really good. You have them in the car, you have them at Lady Trieu's facility and the clock, and you have them again butting heads at Judd's office. So I really, really like this. The hover ships are pretty cool. Lady Trieu is very cool. And that opening sequence was just really tense at the Clark Acre farm.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought this was a great episode once again with a lot of questions. And there was some, nice macabre moments here with the cloning by Adrian Veidt, and then him catapulting them, to, space.
Yeah. Yeah, fascinating. Really good episode.
Maybe it was one of them that was returning to Earth.
Potentially, I don't know whether the catapult would catapult them that far.
No, I suspect not.
I think they were probably coming back in frozen just past the lake or over in the gamekeepers.
Yeah, area. Just a dead Miss Crookshanks with her legs kind of all snapped and broken in the middle of a field in Tulsa.
Yeah. See, we're starting to get a bit macabre on the podcast as well. I think it is having an effect on us. This is an excellent episode. I really, really enjoyed this episode. But it's one of those ones that is going to feel hopefully more part of the whole as the series goes on, because we're only 4 episodes in. We knew this season was going to throw up loads and loads of questions and be very intricate in its design because of who's involved in it and because of the project it's based on. It's going to be massively intricate, and we're not going to get answers in every episode. This is one of those episodes that I got to the end. I think I said it just before starting recording, where I went, I've written down about 95 questions of things that were proposed within this episode. But I love that type of TV, especially when we've got a promise that by the end of the season, we're going to have a lot of these things answered. Yeah, really good. I'm looking forward to episode 5.
Yeah, I'm actually the same as both of you. Essentially, it's, for me, my only concern, concern is very strong, but my doubt, my hope, my wish, my dreams, is that we do get answers, to at least some or majority of these questions. Mm-hmm. As you said, we knew this was going to be the case based on who it is, what it's about, everything like that. And I hope that we can look back on this episode in 2-3 episodes more and go, oh my God, it all makes so much more sense now. And yay. If it doesn't, then this will be a standout episode because it posed too many questions than it answered. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's my thing. As long as they continue to answer at least 1 or 2 additional questions going forward, mm-hmm. But I'm hoping what I'm hoping is that we don't get to episode 7 and it's just been pose question, right. And then we've got 2 hours where we get everything solved in 2 hours. And I'd be like, oh no, that's not how you do it. But again, I'm just enjoying the journey. I'm enjoying the ride. I think that's the best thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's really, they are revealing stuff, but the thing is, it's like being in the back of the car, and all the windows are fogged up and you wipe it so you can see out, but then it fogs up really quickly again. Yeah. And it's like, it's just this layer on layer of opaqueness that, is being pulled back very slowly. And Will is that classic, example. In many respects, we know quite a lot about him now that's been revealed. It's just, we don't know exactly that he may or may not be the hooded justice, mm-hmm. or how he is linking into sort of the wider, thing that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the interesting things. You know, we talked about it on our Prelude podcast when we talked about the Watchmen comic book a little bit and said that all of us had read it. And the first time we read it, we were all quite young and didn't really understand it as much as we do now, 30 or 40 years on from reading it. We understand it a significant amount more than we would have when we read it the first time. I wonder if this show is also going to be like that. Us doing a podcast is certainly focusing me on every single moment of every episode. That's one of the best things about doing a podcast. So you're seeing lots and lots of stuff going on. Will we remember everything that we wanted answered by the end of the season? And will it feel satisfying? Or will we need to watch the whole season all the way through from 1 to 9 a second time after we finish it to understand where they were aiming for the whole time? I'm intrigued to find out.
Yes, it's going to be good. But I'm also intrigued to hear about our fellow watchers and what they think. So look out for our feedback podcast, Bulletin of our Atomic Watchers, before our review of episode 5 next week. Don't forget you can send in your thoughts to feedback@tvpodcastinjuries.com or join us over on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. We always put up a spoiler post for every episode, or I should say Derek or John usually do it because I'm terrible. And they usually put it up, before the episode airs. and we want you to get everything in. We'd love to hear from everyone, and that includes your comments over on email and Facebook, or if you actually want to hear your dulcet tones on this podcast too, you can record a clip of yourself on your phone and email it to us, or you can go to our website at tvpodcastindustry.com and record up to 90 seconds of your thoughts, and we'll slot that into our Atomic Watchers bulletin. Because this is not a simulcast across the globe, we have a cut-off time for weekly feedback at Wednesday, 2 minutes to midday GMT. Now that is GMT based in the UK, so anywhere else, do a quick Google search and we'll get you to where it is. But more importantly, that's about 1 p.m. in Central Europe, 7 a.m. Wednesday for US East Coast, or 4 a.m. Wednesday for the West Coast, 10 p.m. Wednesday in Melbourne. And that's all we're going to do for you. And if you are anywhere else, you can go to Google. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining us.
Other search providers are available.
That is true. They are. But most importantly, thank you as always for listening to us, for joining us. We hope you stay subscribed to the podcast. And if you enjoy what you hear, why not share it with your friends? Because sharing the podcast is sharing the love.
Absolutely. And if you want to support the podcast in a different way, you can also go over to patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries. Throw us a couple of bucks, help support the podcast. Thanks so much for joining for this episode. We'll be back next week on Monday, the 18th of November with Watchmen episode 5, Little Fear of Lightning. John, do you want to give us the official synopsis? I think you might like this one, Chris.
Yes. The origin story of Looking Glass is revealed, as is the truth behind the greatest hoax in American history. The smartest man in the world plots a daring escape.
Answers, and an origin story. Oh, yes.
Excellent.
It's going to be a good one, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. We look forward to chatting to you next week. But for now, ta-ta.
Bye-bye, watchers. Keep watching The Watchmen.
Yes, fellow watchers, thank you so much for joining us. Remember, keep watching and keep listening to TV Podcast Industries. Bye.